Hello children, welcome back to Nagesh Karasge Orchid School channel. So we have started with our lesson 6 history, that is towns, traders and craft persons. We have completed some of the topics. Now we are going to continue with the same chapter, page number 77. So just open that page, we are going to read and study the remaining chapter. Okay. The next topic is pilgrimage centers. Pilgrimage centers also slowly developed into townships. Vrindavan, Uttar Pradesh and Tiruvannamalai, Tamil Nadu are examples of two such towns. Ajmer, that is in Rajasthan, was the capital of the Chauhan kings in the 12th century and later became the Suba headquarters under the Mughals. It provides an excellent example of religious coexistence. Before also I explained this Ajmer, it is open for everyone of all castes and creed, so it is called the religious coexistence. Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, the celebrated Sufi saint, you will study in chapter 8, who settled there in the 12th century, attracted devotees from all creeds. Near Ajmer is a lake, Pushkar, which has attracted pilgrims from ancient times. So near Ajmer there is lake Pushkar, which is very beautiful. It attracts the pilgrims from many years, ancient times. Now here is one question. Make a list of towns in your district and try to classify these as administrative centers or as temple or pilgrimage centers. So you can make a list of towns in your district and try to classify them, whether they are administrative centers, whether they are temple towns or pilgrim centers. So very easy, by studying this we can understand which are administrative या temple या pilgrim centers. A network of small towns. From the 18th century onwards, the subcontinent was dotted with several small towns. These probably emerged from large villages. Now here there is a network means many small towns have emerged. How they have emerged? From large villages. They usually had a mandapika or mandi of later times, to which nearby villages brought their produce to sell. So there was mandi, that is market, where the nearby villages they brought their productions, whatever they used to produce. They also had market streets called hut of later times, lined with shops. Besides, there were streets for different kinds of artisans such as potters, oil pressers, sugar makers, toddy makers, smiths, stone masons, etc. While some traders lived in the town, others travelled from town to town. Many came from far and near to these towns to buy local articles and sell products of distant places like horses, salt, camphor, saffron, betel nut and spices like pepper. Now here in market, the villagers they were bringing their productions and they were selling, and there also had market streets called hut lined with shops. So that is called hut. Beside there were streets for different kinds of artisans such as potters. Some potters were coming, oil presses were there, sugar makers were there, toddy makers, smiths, stone masons, etc. While some traders lived in the town and some traders they were travelling from town to sell their products. Now you can see the market here, city market. Okay, in this picture you can see the market. Now next, usually a samanta or in later times a zamindar who built a fortified palace in or near these towns. They levied taxes on traders, artisans and articles of trade, and sometimes donated the right to collect these taxes to local temples, which had been built by themselves or by rich merchants. These rights were recorded in inscriptions that have survived to this day. So, now here usually a Samanta, or later times they were called as Zamindars. They built a fortified palace. What is fortified palace? It is a palace which is built very strong, so the other people, nobody can attack these palaces with tall walls. So, in near these towns, and they levied taxes on traders, artisans and articles of trade, and sometimes donated the right to collect these taxes to local temples. So, in this way, which had been built by themselves or by rich merchants also. These rights were recorded in inscriptions. Now, you can see here they gave an sample. Now, you can see hood carver here is carving the hood in this picture, and now you can see this inscription. Taxes on markets. The following is a summary from a 10th century inscription from Rajasthan, which lists the dues that were to be collected by temple authorities. There were taxes in kind on sugar and jaggery, dyes, thread and cotton, on coconuts, salt, areca, nuts, butter, sesame oil, on cloth. Besides, there were taxes on traders, on those who sold metal goods, on distillers, on oil, on cattle fodder and on loads of grain. Some of these taxes were collected in kind, while others were collected in cash. So, they were exchanging in whatever they are giving, in return they were taking something in things, and sometimes they were collecting as cash also. Now, here besides there were taxes on traders, on those who sold metal goods, on distillers, distillers means manufacturers of spirits, on oil, on cattle fodder and on loads of grain. So, now here they gave one more question, find out more about present day taxes on markets. Who collects this? How are they collected and what are they used for? So, at present also taxes are collected. So, you must know this general question. It is like you should make a list that find out more about. You should note down how the taxes are collected and what are they used for. Now, next is traders, big and small. Now, we are going to learn about traders who are big and small. There were many kinds of traders. These included the Banjaras. You can study more in chapter 7. Several traders, especially horse traders, formed associations with headmen who negotiated on their behalf with warriors who bought horses. Now, here they made associations, means they made groups, and they selected one headman, and that headman, he used to negotiate. The horses are required for warriors, so he used to initiate and do the negotiations for trading of horses. Since traders had to pass through many kingdoms and forests, they usually travelled in caravans and formed guilds to protect their interests. There were several such guilds in South India from the 18th century. Now, what are guilds here? Again, there are groups. They were made groups of people. Since traders had to pass through many kingdoms and forests, so individually travelling is bit difficult, bit risky, so they were forming the groups and they were travelling. So, there were several such guilds in South India from the 18th century. The most famous being the Manigramam, Nanadesi. These guilds traded extensively both within the peninsula and with Southeast Asia and China. There were also communities like Chettias and the Marwari Oswal who went on to become the principal trading groups of the country. Gujarati traders, including the communities of Hindu Baniyas and Muslim Bohras, traded extensively with the ports of the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, East Africa, Southeast Asia and China. They sold textiles and spices in these ports and in exchange brought gold and ivory from Africa and spices, tin, Chinese blue pottery and silver from Southeast Asia and China. So, they were solding textiles and spices in the ports, and in exchange what they brought? They brought gold and ivory from Africa and spices, tin, even Chinese blue pottery and silver from Southeast Asia and China. Now, the towns on the west coast were home to Arab, Persian, Chinese, Jewish, Syrian, Christian traders. Indian spices and cloth sold in the Red Sea port were purchased by Italian traders and eventually reached European markets, fetching very high profits. Spices grown in tropical climates like pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, dried ginger, etc. became an important part of European cooking, and cotton cloth was very attractive. This eventually drew European traders to India. We will shortly read about how this changed the face of trading and towns. Now here see the towns on west coast where the Arab to home. Now here Persian, Chinese, Jewish and Syrian Christian traders were there. Indian spices and cloth sold in the Red Sea ports were purchased by whom? By Italian traders, and eventually reached those products to European markets, and they were getting very high profits. Now in tropical climates like Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, many spices were grown. Why? Because the climate is hot and the rainfall is good. Pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, dried ginger, etc. became an important part of European cooking. Now they got this taste of spices, and the cotton was very attractive. This eventually the European people, the traders, came to India. Now here is one more question. As you can see, during this period there was a great circulation of people and goods. What impact do you think this would have had on the lives of people in towns and villages? Make a list of artisans living in towns. So you should imagine what impact it had happened on their lives, what problems they faced or what profits they got. Everything you should think and write it. Now next topic we are going, that is Kabul. With its rugged mountainous landscape, Kabul in present day Afghanistan became politically and commercially important from the 16th century. So here why they said politically and commercially, it was ruled by Babur. So he was ruling politically, he was ruling this, and commercially also, means the business has been started and it became very important from the 16th century. Onwards, Kabul and Kandahar were linked to the celebrated Silk Route. Besides, trade in horses was primarily carried on through this route. Even the trade of silk trading was going on, because silk is grown, and even the horses were used for trading. They were sold. In the 17th century, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, a diamond merchant, estimated that the horse trade at Kabul amounted to rupees 30,000 annually, which was a huge sum in those days. Just you imagine 30,000 at that century, it was a very big amount. Okay. Camels carried dried fruits, dates, carpets, silks and even fresh fruits from Kabul to subcontinent and elsewhere. So, here camels, they used to carry dry fruits, dates, carpets, silk and even fresh fruits from Kabul to the subcontinent and elsewhere. Slaves were also brought here for sale. Even the trading of slaves was also done. Now, crafts in towns. The craft persons of Bidar were so famed for their inlay work in copper and silver that it came to be called Bidri. So, the craft which is done in Bidar, the craft persons which were doing their work, the craft work, it was so famous that it came the name was given like Bidri. The Panchalas or Vishwakarma community consisting of goldsmiths, bronzesmiths, blacksmiths, masons and carpenters. So, 5 communities like goldsmith, bronzesmith, blacksmith, mason and carpenters, it is called, this is the reason it is called as Panchalas and Vishwakarma also. So, 5 communities were there and were essential to the building of temples. They also played an important role in the construction of palaces, big buildings, tanks and reservoirs. Similarly, weavers such as Saliyar and Kaikolars emerged as prosperous communities, making donations to temples, and some aspects of cloth making like cotton cleaning, spinning, dyeing became specialized and independent crafts. So, here is Saliyars and Kaikolars, they also emerged and they became very prosperous communities. And what they were making? They were making donations to temples, and some of the aspects of cloth making like cotton cleaning, spinning and dyeing became specialized and independent crafts. Here you can see the craft of Bidar, Bidri, that is, it is a stand of candle. So, very finely it is designed. Okay. See, a 17th century candle stand, brass with black overlay. Now, here you can see a shawl border. Oh, yes, this is a type of craft. Now, next we are going to see what are the changing fortunes of towns. Some towns like Ahmedabad, which is in Gujarat, went on to become major commercial cities, but others like Tanjore shrank in size and importance over the centuries. In the beginning we learnt about Tanjore, which was very famous in all the aspects, but it started to shrank, it became less famous as over the centuries. Murshidabad, West Bengal, on the banks of Bhagirathi river, which rose to prominence as a center for silks and became the capital of Bengal in 1704. Declined in the course of the century as the weavers faced competition from cheap mill-made cloth from England. Now, England was producing the mill-made cloth which they were giving for a cheap rate. So, that is the reason now these people they are facing, they also became declined and they were facing these weavers were facing competition. Okay. Now, next we are going to see a closure loop, that is already in the beginning of the lesson we have focused on these 3 towns, that is Hampi, Masulipatam and Surat. So, now the architectural splendor of Hampi. What is this splendor? It is brilliant or gorgeous, very gorgeous. Architecture is very famous. Hampi is located in the Krishna Tungabhadra basin, which formed the nucleus of Vijayanagara Empire, founded in 1336. The magnificent ruins at Hampi reveal a well fortified city. No mortar or cementing agent was used in the construction of these walls, and technique followed was to wedge them together by interlocking. As we construct any of the building or houses constructed, usually we use cement, bricks and everything, but here there was no cementing agent. Cement was not used, only the technique, that is interlocking. If you could see this, the wall, view of the watchtower through a broken wall of the enclosure of Hampi. So, this is called interlocking system. They used this system and constructed. A fortified city. This is how a Portuguese traveller Domingo Paes described Hampi in the 16th century. At the entrance of the gate where those pass who come from Goa, this king has made within it a very strong city fortified with walls and towers. These walls are not like those of other cities, but are made of very strong masonry such as would be found in few other parts, and inside very beautiful rows of buildings made after their manner with flat roofs. So, the construction, the architectural work was very much different and it is very rarely found. So, he described it. Who? The Portuguese traveller. Why do you think the city was fortified? So, you must know the reason. During their rule, the Vijayanagara rulers took keen interest in building tanks and canals. The Anantara Sagar tank was built with 1.37 kilometers long earthen dam across the Maldevi river. Krishnadevaraya built a huge stone embankment between two hills to create a massive lake near Vijayanagara, from which water was carried through aqueducts and channels to irrigate fields and gardens. So, here the channel was built between two hills so that it will be very convenient for the people to carry the water for irrigation and for other purposes. So, here aqueduct is a artificial channel. Okay. Now, the architecture of Hampi was distinctive. The buildings in the royal complex had splendid arches, domes and pillared halls with niches for holding sculptures. They also had well planned orchards and pleasure gardens with sculptural motifs such as lotus and corbels. In its heyday in the 15th-16th centuries, Hampi bustled with commercial and cultural activities. Muslim merchants, Chettis and agents of European traders such as Portuguese thronged the markets of Hampi. Now, the architecture of Hampi was very unique, very distinctive. The buildings in the royal complex had splendid arches, domes which you could see, and pillared halls with niches for holding. There were some compartments for holding sculptures, and they also had well planned orchards and pleasure gardens with sculptural motifs such as lotus and corbels. You know what are corbels? Hampi bustled with commercial and cultural activities. Even cultural activities were taken place. Muslim merchants, Chettis and agents of European traders such as Portuguese thronged the markets of Hampi now. They got attracted now. Now temples were the hub of cultural activities, and Devdasis, that are those temple dancers, they were called as Devdasis, performed before the deity, royalty and masses in the many pillared halls in the Virupaksha, a form of Shiva temple. So here the dances, they used to perform their dances in front of whom? In front of deity, means God, royalty, kings and masses means other people, where they used to perform in many pillared halls, and that is Virupaksha, a form of Shiva temple. The Mahanavami festival, known today as Navaratri in the south, was one of the most important festivals celebrated at Hampi. Archaeologists found Mahanavami platform where the king received guests and accepted tribute from subordinate chiefs. From here he also watched dance and music performances as well as wrestling bouts. Now this Mahanavami platform, where the kings, they used to receive many guests, accepted tributes, honor and subordinate chiefs. From here you also watched the dances and music performances as well as wrestling bouts. Hampi fell into ruin following the defeat of Vijayanagara in 1565 by the Deccani Sultans. The rulers of Golconda, Bijapur, Ahmednagar, Berar and Bidar. Now it is falling in ruin now, when it was defeated by Vijayanagara in 1565 by Deccani Sultans. Now a gateway to west, that is Surat. Now we learnt about Hampi. Now we are going to next town, that is Surat. Surat in Gujarat was the emporium of western trade during the Mughal period, along with Cambay, that is present Kambat, and somewhat later Ahmedabad. Now presently it is called Ahmedabad. Surat was the gateway for trade with West Asia, the Gulf of Ormuz. Surat has also been called the gate to Mecca because many pilgrim ships set sail from here. So it is called the gate to Mecca, because why? Many pilgrim ships set sail from here, they used to travel, the sea route was there here. Now emporium means, here the meaning is given, a place where goods from diverse production centers are brought. The city was cosmopolitan and people of all castes and creed lived here. In the 17th century, the Portuguese, Dutch and English had their factories and warehouses at Surat. According to the English chronicler Ovington, who wrote an account of the port in 1689, on average 100 ships of different centuries could be found anchored at the port at any given time. So we started with Surat. Now this is a cosmopolitan city, that is from many areas the people were coming here. Okay. Now people of all castes and creeds lived here. In the 17th century, the Portuguese, Dutch and English had their factories and warehouses. Warehouses means storages at Surat. Okay. Now this chronicler means what? What is meant by chronicler? Who writes the accounts? So who wrote an account of port in 1689? And on average 100 ships of different countries could be found anchored. So many ships were anchored at this port at any given time. There were also several retail and wholesale shops selling cotton textiles The textiles of Surat were famous for their gold lace borders, that is zari, and had a market in West Asia, Africa and Europe. The state built numerous rest houses to take care of the needs of people from all over the world who came to the city. There were magnificent buildings and innumerable pleasure parks. The Kathiawar Seths or Mahajanas, that are money changers, those who used to change the money, the currency, had huge banking houses at Surat. It is noteworthy that the Surat Handis were honored in far off markets of Cairo in Egypt, Basra in Iraq and Antwerp in Belgium. So, what is Handis? Is a note recording a deposit made by a person. The amount deposited can be claimed in another place by presenting the record of the deposit. Whatever the amount they used to borrow, they used to give a note to the lender. It is mentioned that when they are going to pay, the amount they have borrowed and the date also it is to mention. This is called Handi. However, Surat began to decline towards the end of the 17th century. This was because of many factors: the loss of markets and productivity, of the decline of Mughal Empire, control of the sea routes by Portuguese, competition from Bombay, present day Mumbai, where the English East India Company shifted its headquarters in 1668. Today, Surat is bustling commercial center. Now, again Surat became the bustling center. Slowly it started to decline towards the end of the 17th century. The reasons are like the productivity and the markets became declined to the Mughal Empire, control of the sea routes by Portuguese and competition from Bombay, where the East India Company, English East India Company shifted their headquarters in 1668. Now, fishing in troubled water. Okay children, now we will start the next topic in next session. So, until then, take care. Thank you. Bye.